Welcome to the Adventurers Go-To podcast. I'm your host, Holden Thomas, and today we'll be looking at the 1932 and 1999 version of The Mummy. Today's sponsor is Cabela's world's most famous outfitter. If you're planning a simple camping trip to the backyard or traveling across the world to fight a resurrected mummy, Cabela's can supply you with the best gear to make your experience easy and remarkable.
Yeah, some days I feel unfazed, like when I'm with my friends with a cup raised. Come Monday, I got a gun raised, suicidal do or die until hump day. Then I go right back at it like an automatic. More drinks, more songs, more beats to rap. I need a shrink.
In modern day film, it's not uncommon for an old movie to get a reboot or a new adaptation. There are many examples of modern day remakes. For example, Clash of the Titans, The Departed, Dracula, and King Kong. However, there's only one true winner in my personal opinion, and I've put a lot of thought into this. The best example of a remake that did well artistically at telling a story, visually, and critically at the box office would have to be the 1999 version of The Mummy. The 1999 version of The Mummy was a roller coaster of action and adventure at the time. It starred Brendan Fraser, who at the time was one of the biggest blockbuster actors, starring in many roles and reprising in many famous movies. However, not as famous after his divorce and his wife took all his money. The description of the movie is as follows from Wikipedia. The Mummy is a 1999 American film written and directed by Stephen Sommers. The film follows adventurer Rick O'Connell as he travels to Hamunaptra, the city of the dead, with a librarian and her older brother, where they accidentally awaken Imhotep, a cursed high priest from the reign of the pharaoh Seti I of 1290 BC. The movie, I feel, is very nostalgic to me personally, as I watched it a lot as a kid. It is one of my favorite movies, and I wanted to be Rick O'Connell more than anything. In the movie, they mention they actually don't want to wake up any mummies. Both movies talk about not waking up the dead, but only the remake acknowledges how stupid it is to wake it up in the first place. It throws a comedic sense and value into the film. The original is just a monster film, whereas the remake is an action-adventure and makes the argument that without such adventurers, there would be no journey and no awakening of the mummy in the first place. The reason the remake was much more successful was because it was self-aware and acknowledged that the presence of the situation. The original lacks this recognition of plot holes. It continues about as the story continues while recognizing there wouldn't be a problem if there was no scientists or adventurers to wake up the mummy in the first place. But of course, the 1999 version of The Mummy is an adaptation of the legendary mummy movies and stories itself, loosely based off the 32 version. The story is based off the legend of King Tutankhamun, one of the most well-known pharaohs of Egypt. The curse is real and was a real thing that happened. It happened to an archaeologist to unveil the tomb of Tutankhamun. Once the tomb was opened, toxic gases that hadn't seen normal air reached the diggers and archaeologists, causing them to become sick from the toxic air itself. Now, personally, I feel the 1999 version is the best version today, as it takes aspects from every movie previous to that, but also adds in a modern entails that appeal to a modern-day audience. Now, let's look at the 1932 version of The Mummy. The movie runtime is almost double that of the 99 version. Directed by Carl Freud, starring Boris Karloff, Zita Johann, and Edward Van Sloan. It uses practical effects from the legendary visual effect artist Jack Pierce. Both stories follow a similar storyline, but the resurrection and release of the ancient prince Imhotep. The biggest difference in the movie, however, is that the lack of Rick O'Connell. Instead, there is Sir Joseph Wemple, a scientist who is researching the mummy. Now, the reason the 99 version is better is because you feel invited. The movie itself is self-aware. It makes fun of the plotline and makes you invested into the characters. So if they die, you mourn them and feel empathy for them during their struggles in the film. The movie is fun and exciting to watch, making you want to go out yourself on an adventure. End credits states, the movie is an amazing mix of Scooby-Doo and Indiana Jones. And I personally agree. I think it's one of the closest things we've come to Indiana Jones other than Indiana Jones itself. The original film lacked the ability to develop character arcs and personality. You never really get to know the characters and their background, other than their occupation and job. The movie was a descent from the time when it came out, but it lacks power and strength. To today's audience and critics, it is very boring action-wise. Unlike the 99 version where there are explosions, gunfights, sword battles, jump scares, and suspense. The movie drives itself to the box office and frankly puts the original to shame. The actors in the new film work well with each other, and you can see there's a good relationship between them. One major thing that the original lacked is comedy. There's no comedic relief, and throughout the film, there's a serious environment. There's no smiles and there's no jokes cracked. But in the 1999 version, the movie is very subtle at being funny. It is very enjoyable to sit through. The visual effects in the original are great, practically, but are not comparable to the 1999 version. Jack Pierce did an amazing job with what materials he had. The YouTube channel Josh Keefe says this about the horror. The movie does have some disturbing scenes that even hold up today very well in the visual effects department. Even though some of the visual effects don't hold up the exact same as they might have in 1999, they're still good enough to contribute to the storyline and effectively give the immersion into the movie itself. To get a sense of where the world was with CGI at the time, Star Wars Episode 1 had just come out as well. The movie puts itself into many subcategories, but it prevails really well with one intention: to purely entertain and catch the audience's attention. The movie doesn't make it easy either for the characters to beat the antagonist. Imhotep has godlike powers and can easily overpower the protagonist. However, he is flawed, so the characters in the film easily fight back with demonic rituals and pure firepower at the time. The movie has a classic plot line for the villain too. He kidnaps the pretty girl so he can sacrifice her to bring his dead lover back to life. And the movie takes you through deserts, cities, and jungles, unlike the original, where it makes the adventurers oblivious to adventure itself and you never actually see them go anywhere threatening. The overwrought theme and plot of adventure action movies is well done in films, but the reason this one is an exception is because it's the greatest example of why a remake can be better than the original. The classical overdone plot: rescue the damsel in distress, kill the bad guy, and save the world. It's simple and textbook action adventure with more emphasis on the story itself. The movie asks questions and makes you stay on top of your feet. It doesn't answer who or what the mummy is, you find out through the movie itself. The movie sets the stage for more important background information, but other than that, you learn along the way, just like the characters. The 1932 version and the 1990 version are completely different in all aspects, other than the story. But they both share the same story originally. So, in my personal opinion, the 99 adaptation of The Mummy is the greatest version of The Mummy visually, story-wise to date, and it acknowledges the settings and plot holes, unlike the original. But also, it is the greatest example of a remake that is better than the original. I'm Holden Thomas, and this is the Adventurers Go-To podcast. Have a great day.